It's time for GGSP. I'm Jem.
I'm Will.
And I'm Rad. Coming up on the show, we've got the endothermic vertebrates known as AVs. Endo what now? Oh, sorry. Excuse my scientific Latin. Birds. Angry birds. That's right, those furious feathered fowls are back. And they're in your face. We review Angry Birds VR. Plus, Darren's got the lowdown on what makes a CPU work. And we've got a huge scoop of gaming news.
VR technology is really going from strength to strength, isn't it?
100%. It's a shame it's so hard to give the people watching a sense of what it's really like to be in it, though.
Oh, well, that's why I made these goggles for the camera. I mean, a little bit of help from Darren, but I call them the SP Peepers.
Oh, well, go on, put them on.
Now everyone at home is experiencing the wonders of VR. Whoa. Or maybe we didn't test it, so...
In a world separate from our own, an entire species lives in constant fear of attack by a nation of ruthless, multicolored assailants who seek only to bring about chaos and destruction. Their regime is violent and unforgiving, and in hushed whispers, their victims utter their name into the void. And that name is Angry Birds, which has now found a home on the PlayStation VR in Angry Birds VR Isle of Pigs. Been living under a rock for the past 10 years, Angry Birds began as a humble mobile game developed by Rovio Entertainment. The goal was to rescue eggs kidnapped by the invading green pigs by launching your limited arsenal of birds to topple their settlement. It was a simple physics-based puzzle formula, but one that got a lot of people hooked. And it was that popularity that saw Angry Birds grow, spawning multiple gaming titles, toys, a feature film, and even a theme park in Finland called Angry Birdland. All of this from a mobile game about throwing birds at pigs. And now we continue that time-honoured tradition of throwing birds at pigs in the world of virtual reality. But first, a quick reminder that VR is not recommended for GGS peeps under the age of 13. So keep that in mind before giving it a crack. The core concept remains the same, but on a 3D scale. Using move controllers to guide your slingshot, you take aim at whatever or whomever you want to wipe out, before pulling the trigger and sending your feathery ball of destruction to its destination. What distinguishes Isle of Pigs from its mobile ancestor, though, is the ability to change positions. Using the trigger button, you can dart around the outside of each area to get a better view or vantage point. This is very useful when you get to the bigger, more dense structures that require more planning in order to break their defenses. Ooh, that bird's eye view does come in handy. So far, Isle of Pigs only has 4 of the bird types. You've got Classic Red, Chuck, who can speed up mid-flight to cause more damage, Bomb, no prizes for guessing what he does, and the Blues, who can split off into triplets to cover more ground, or should I say air. And all of them will come together to help you destroy private property, which I almost feel bad for because they're just so pretty. Each level is constructed in front of you, kind of Lego-esque, and each chapter takes place in a different environment. They're not super detailed and you can't interact with them outside of the building you're bringing down, but they're still very pretty. It's not without its kinks though, and for me, the game's biggest problem was the depth perception. As I was popping between distances, activating a bird's special abilities got a bit tricky, as I couldn't always see how close or far away they were from the target. It's not a major issue, but when you have limited moves, one bad one can mean the difference between a 2-star or a 3-star score. So that is pretty frustrating. But what about you? Did you run into anything like that? I ran into a lot of things, but it was after I took the headset off. I think because of the constantly changing perspectives, I felt some serious motion sickness. But of course, VR is a roll of the dice for stuff like that, so I can't hold it against the game itself. And it's not like it's an overly long experience anyway. I managed to clock all 4 chapters of Isle of Pigs in about 2 hours. Yeah, it is very short, but the devs have said that they'll be adding more levels in the future to bulk it up. At the time of review, Isle of Pigs is about $20 on the PlayStation Store, which isn't much, but it feels like you're paying more for the privilege of playing the game in VR. which I feel you already paid for when you bought the VR equipment.
Yeah, and it's not like this is really adding anything new to what the mobile game has already given us. This one is tricky because I had a good time with it, in between the bouts of nausea, of course. But I've already played Angry Birds, and this is just more with extra steps. So I'm giving Angry Birds VR 2.5 out of 5 angry rubber chickens.
If you're a fan of this series, you're bound to get a kick out of the novelty of playing in VR. But I think that's where the fun starts and ends. Personally, I'd rather just play the mobile game. I'm giving it 2 out of 5 angry rubber chickens.
Good spawning, Australia! It's time for the scoop with me, Darren! And my sidekick for today is Will!
Sidekick?
I mean, esteemed guest. Now, before we get stuck into the gaming news, it's time for Darren's Challenge! What name does Captain Cuttlefish give to the amnesiac Octoling in the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion? Answer at the end of the scoop.
Oh, well, I have a feeling it's a pretty appropriate name. Appropriate?
Don't give it away now, Will. On to the news. First up, a first-time competitor at the NorCal Regional Fighting Game Tournament has managed to defeat the Dragon Ball FighterZ World Champion. A player known as Kazunoko won the Dragon Ball FighterZ World Tour Championship earlier this year and is considered to be one of the best fighting game players around. Yet, he was beaten by newcomer Brian Nakai.
That's pretty inspiring. Everyone loves an underdog story. Right, Boatmeal?
Hey, I'm the one that's supposed to talk to Boatmeal.
Oh, sorry, Darren.
It's okay, Will. Now we have more news to discuss, like the fact that Wobbly Puzzler, Human Fall Flat, now has Steam Workshop support. This will allow players to create and share their own maps, skins, and lobbies, as well as explore the creations of other players.
So you can make your own playground within a wonky world of physics? Oh, sounds good to me.
Human creativity. How quaint. In other news, a few more NES games have been added to the Nintendo Switch Online retro games lineup, including Punch-Out!, Star Soldier, and Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels.
It's good that more classic games are being added, but I'd love to see an even greater variety from some of the more old Nintendo consoles to really make Switch Online worthwhile.
A valid point, Will. Oh, speaking of valid points, it's Darren's Dialogue Box! The topic of discussion for today is the Toys to Life phenomenon dead?
It is an interesting one, Darren. I was actually thinking about this recently too after Ubisoft announced that they are going to stop making toys for Starlink Battle for Atlas. Apparently, sales just didn't live up to expectations.
Affirmative. It was thought that Starlink might have been able to revive the Toys to Life genre, but considering this news, as well as what happened to LEGO Dimensions, Skylanders, and the Disney Infinity series, perhaps the genre really is ready to be buried.
Maybe, Darren, like those old ET cartridges, but I do have a fondness for Toys to Life, and Amiibo is still around. I actually remember hearing that sales grew in the 2017 to 2018 fiscal year.
Impressive use of fiscal data there, Will. Now it's time for the Extra Scoop! What's on the cards for this week?
This week, I've been looking back at some of the highlights from the Alt Control GDC showcase for games with unconventional controllers. From the Book Ritual, which uses a real book and shredder, to Overtime, which converts a basketball toy into a controller, to Ruins Climber, where you're a chicken climbing a wall with a rope. Which makes me wonder, why would a chicken climb a wall?
I know this one. To get to the hen house. Get it?
That is pretty good, Darren.
All my jokes are. And now it's time for the answer to Darren's challenge. The name Captain Cuttlefish gives to the amnesiac Octoling in the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion is Agent 8. Originally referred to as Subject 10,008 by the telephone, Captain Cuttlefish decides Agent 8 is a more efficient moniker.
Monica? Who's Monica?
Oh, Will. And that's all the scoops we have for now. Until next time, good night, Australia. Oh, yeah. Love you all. Computers are delicate and potentially dangerous pieces of electrical equipment. Do not try to open them without adult supervision. Welcome to my computer lab, where I'm taking you through how computers work, bit by bit. Get it? Bits? Oh, you'll get it later. Today, I'm looking at the brains and real workhorses of any computer, their processors. Behold! You might need to get closer. Closer. Closer! There are two common types of processors used in today's devices: central and graphics processing units. They may look small, but don't let their size deceive you. They're a true marvel of modern technology, squeezing an immense amount of computing out of millions or even billions of microscopic transistors. These transistors can switch on or off to represent either a 1 or a 0. They can then use all those 1s and 0s, also known as bits or binary digits, to calculate data and run programs in the language of computers: binary. Everything you see on a computer is just the result of billions of 1s and 0s being calculated. In 1965, the CEO of Intel, Gordon Moore, observed that manufacturers and engineers were managing to double the amount of transistors they could put on processors every 2 years. This observation came to be known as Moore's Law. It's this process which has allowed computers to become so much more powerful, and why ever smaller computing devices, like smartphones and watches, are possible now when they would have been unfeasible just 20 years ago. However, transistors are rapidly approaching the point where they simply cannot get any smaller, causing Moore himself to go so far as to say he sees his law dying by around 2025. From that point on, major advances in computing power will likely have to come from other areas, such as artificial intelligence, or quantum computing. But I don't want to talk about those quantum computers. So, while processors may be the brains of a computer, they're not like squishy human brains full of emotions and whatnot. Blah. They run on 100% pure, clean maths. The speed they can do that maths is referred to as their clock speed. You see, processors need data to stay precisely synchronized, or else numbers would go flying around willy-nilly and you get nothing but gibberish. So they use an electronic pulse called a clock signal to keep everything in lockstep. Each pulse sends a new set of instructions and calculations to process, so the faster its clock speed, the faster it can calculate. This is what people are referring to when they say a processor runs at a certain number of mega or gigahertz. 1 gigahertz is 1 billion clock signals per second. That's a lot of maths. However, since around 2004, it became less power efficient to increase performance through simply turning up clock speeds. Instead, they began using multiple cores and threads. Each core is essentially a whole extra processor placed on the same chip, whilst threads allow those cores to process 2 things at once. While many programs rely on CPU power, my favorite type of programs often need an extra bit of help from a special processor called a graphics processing unit. I'm talking about games, baby! So, you may be wondering, what makes a GPU special? Why don't we just use more CPUs? Well, when it comes to rendering video game worlds, those few cores would draw each frame like so, because CPUs typically only have a few very fast cores, which are great at solving complex problems, but not so good at rendering graphics. While GPUs would draw the same frame like so, because they have hundreds or even thousands of slower cores with many threads each, perfect for pushing out frame after frame of those precious gaming pixels. As a gamer, you may be thinking, boo CPU, and yay GPU, but CPUs are still incredibly important for gaming. While GPUs take care of pumping out graphics, it's the CPUs that handle many of the really interesting things, such as artificial intelligence, physics, and actually telling the graphics card what graphics it needs to put out. But that's all the time we have for today. Hopefully you now have an appreciation for all those billions of bits your computers compute for you. See you next time for a look at memory.
Jem, I must say I'm developing somewhat of a taste for this whole question and answer caper. The Q&A fray, the quest for queries.
Oh, that's great, Will. Did you happen to get a new thesaurus recently?
Oh, indubitably, positively, undeniably.
Cool. Well, let's get stuck into the quest for queries with this video question from Isaac.
Hi, my name is Isaac and I have 2 questions for you. Question 1, have you played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes? Question 2, can you recommend other games like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes? P.S. I love your show. P.P.S. Will, do these.
Ah, yes, of course.
Thanks, Isaac. To answer your question about whether we've played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, we have indeed. We played it for one of our Friday live streams a little while ago. Oh, the fun and the stress.
Yeah, that was my first live stream for GGSP. We couldn't get the VR version to work though, so I haven't tried it in VR yet. And Barjo and Hex also reviewed it on the show back in the day, so you can check that out online if you're interested.
As for recommendations for other games like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, there are some other co-op games that rely on puzzle solving, communication, and/or teamwork that might appeal to you. Like TikTok, A Tale for Two, which is an eerie 2-player puzzler played across 2 screens.
Or perhaps the multiplayer co-op mode of Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. The puzzle platformer Trine, even Overcooked and Overcooked 2 if you like the added crunch of a time limit. And one of my personal favorites, the co-op mode in Portal 2.
Hey, Portal Pals! Some great suggestions there. Okay, well, how's about another question? And here we have one from Shadow and the Floppy Man from the Underworld, Tasmania. I have a noob accusation against Will and Jem. You say that in the Lego Movie 2 video game that Emmett travels at the speed of nothing, when if you walk long enough, you will start to sprint. Plus, do these.
What? My first noob accusation? No, Jem, no, I'm not ready.
Yeah, all right, let's just keep calm. I'm sure there's a logical explanation to all of this, but we'd better loop Darren in anyway.
Hello, Darren speaking.
Hey, Darren, Jim and Will here, just hanging out, you know, mastering games very un-noobishly at the Ask SP desk when, out of nowhere, a noob accusation appeared.
Oh my. Well, lay it on me, Jem.
Okay, so Shadow the Floppy Man says that we said that in the Lego Movie 2 game, Emmett travels at the speed of nothing. But apparently, if you walk long enough, you'll start to sprint.
Well, the best way to get to the bottom of this is to review the footage. Roll the tape. Me.
It's okay, Will, we're in this together.
Okay. That kind of slow, empty battling also found its way into the boss battles. Having to dodge massive blows from the Duplocalypse baddies can become tedious when Emmett moves at the speed of nothing.
Oh, so I didn't say that. So, strictly speaking, we're not in this together, I guess, Will. I'm just saying.
Yeah, thanks for the support, Jem. But look, that was just a turn of phrase to emphasize how the movement felt very slow to me. That's not a noob cup, surely, Darren.
Well, I quite agree with you, Will. A bit of hyperbole to express an opinion can be justifiable in a review context. It's all in the spirit of robust critique, which is what we're all about here at GGSP. I don't believe there's a need to take this to the noob court.
Yes, thank you, Darren. Bye.
You're welcome. So long.
Phew, I'm so glad that's resolved.
Me too. Let's get a move on though, shall we? And oh, actually, Will, this might help calm your nerves. There's a bunch of questions from a fellow Lego fan, Queen Nexo of Legoland in Legoland, Victoria.
Ooh. Hi GGSP, I'm a huge Lego fan and I have some questions for you. 1, what is your favorite Lego game? 2, what is the best Lego game I can get on the Switch? 3, who is the best Lego Dimensions character? 4, who is your favorite Lego character? If you don't answer, I will send my Master Builder army after you. Queen Nexo out.
Will, I'm gonna let you field these ones since you are a resident Lego aficionado. First, what is your favorite Lego game?
If I had to choose one, I'd have to say the first Lego Indiana Jones game, such a classic.
And the best Lego game for Switch?
Well, depending on what you like, I'd say the Lego Harry Potter collection is pretty good, or maybe the Lego Ninjago movie video game.
How about the best Lego Dimensions character and your favorite Lego character?
Well, if you play as Wonder Woman in Lego Dimensions, you can fly over everything. So that's cool, although it does mean that you can basically avoid the game, which sort of defeats the purpose of playing the game, right? I also really love Doctor Who in Lego Dimensions. As for my favorite Lego character, I'm going to say Lego Spider-Man. He can actually be Peter Parker too, which is awesome.
Nice choices there, Will. And on that note, I do believe we are out of time. If you have a question you'd like to send us, go here.
And remember, all our awesome video questions that appear on the show will receive an equally awesome GGSP pin.
You know, Will, coming out of the other end of a noob accusation unnoobed is quite the milestone. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jem. I'm very relieved.
They grow up so fast.
Aren't we the same age?
Well, yeah, but Goose said that to me once, and I've always wanted to say it to somebody else.
Right.
Oh, I can't believe you avoided your first Noob Cup, Will.
I adjudicated fairly, and he was acquitted justly.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I was feeling pretty lucky.
Oh, you are pretty lucky, but don't worry, there's always next week. And speaking of next week, we've got even more VR goodness coming your way as we learn to hunt, gather, and fight in the action-adventure Falcon Age.
Ooh, I wonder if we can get a VR gaming company on board with our SP Peepers, Darren.
We might need to get started on version 2.0, Will.
Now, if you didn't know, GGSP is in its 10th year on ABC Me, and we want your happy birthday messages. Head on over to our website here and click the link to upload your video. Make it snappy, be creative, and you might end up on the show.
And while you're online, check out this week's exclusive review. We take Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon everybody for a spin. Until next time, may all your games be good ones. Right out.
Will out.
Gem out.
Darren out.